guys. I'm here today with Rick Rodriguez. He's a great guy. He's been supporting my channel for quite a while now. He's been unfortunate to not be able to donate to my channel yet, as I'm not yet monetized. So there's that. I'm teasing. But yeah, it's great to have him on. He's a guy that's been eating like a carnivore diet, or at least animal based, for yonks now, like ages, long time. He's got some pretty cool ideas about it all, and he didn't follow this diet coming to the idea that he was gonna, do it for optimal health to live forever. He's actually trying to be a bit self-destructive and see what kind of damage he could put into himself before he popped his clogs. So yeah, that's the words that I'll say. But would you like to introduce yourself a little bit better than that?
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate representation. I'm Rick, and I'm the guy that's been eating this way for 39 years. The main thing is, as you said, I didn't do it as a health food. I notice a lot of the interviews that you and other people have had, they have individuals that were suffering some serious health issues. Everything from as simple as gaining weight when they shouldn't, to aches and pains and blood sugar issues, and some very serious things that they've been able to help moderate or even cure with this diet. I did it for a totally different reason. The problem I had is that I was one of the skinniest and shortest kids in junior high. And it was very, very frustrating because even the girls were bigger than me. So I got to the point where I just didn't want to live like that anymore. And I was always told that you need to eat a lot of healthy foods like vegetables and fruits, and drink your fruit juice and eat your oatmeal and eat your spinach and all these foods, and your Brussels sprouts, which I absolutely hate. So I thought, well, I've been eating all this stuff for so long, it hasn't really done me any good. What if I went the other way? What if I decided I'm going to eat as much of the bad stuff, the beef, the fat, using lard, eating butter, not that crappy margarine, and just see how much, like you said, how much damage I can do. Maybe I could give myself a heart attack in high school and then I wouldn't have to be picked on anymore. But of course, a totally opposite thing happened.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, I can speak as well. Perhaps we can go into this a little bit. So, I was teased a lot as a child, picked on for maybe having goofy teeth, being a bit unsociable, bit moody, not very friendly, didn't communicate with people very well. But yeah, I mean, now on this diet, I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm just myself, and it's so liberating. And I'm sure you've probably experienced the same thing. I mean, you've been trying all this time to sort of really push your limits, sort of thing, and nothing's happened. You just become healthier and healthier, essentially. So, what sort of key things have you noticed in the last maybe few years, or even go back to 20 years ago? So you started the diet. What are the things that you thought, all right, this has or hasn't happened yet?
Well, actually, when I started the diet in 83, there was a magazine that came out. It was a Time magazine, and it had a dish on it with a couple of eggs as eyes and a frowning piece of bacon. And it was talking about the bad news about cholesterol, how bad it would be. But that was like the first year that I ate this way. And the funny thing was, as you said, I used to get picked on a lot. It used to drive me crazy. I would get upset and angry and cry about it and whatever. And then my whole attitude changed. It became, oh, well, I could see, first of all, I could see it coming. I knew when the bullies were coming and I'd get ready for them. And then it just didn't bother me as much, and people would laugh at me. And I thought it was actually kind of funny. I felt more like a comedian than anything. And then I started to become more outspoken. I used to be more shy. I would kind of hide, not say anything. But then it got to the point where I didn't care anymore. I figured, you know what? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to say what I think. And I think it took a lot of other people by surprise. And of course, as time went on, you know, that same year, I had another kid that from junior high that was starting to pick on me, and I just lost it. I decked him so hard, and it was amazing that someone as skinny as I was able to do that much damage. So everything started to change within that first year.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Like, I mean, I've done it on and off now for probably about 2.5 years. Since the first day I initially started it to any extent. Yeah, the longer I do it, the more the benefits are. I mean, that's your first year. I mean, what have you noticed? Say, talk to me about, you've not been to the dentist in God knows how long. How's that working out for you?
Well, like you said, I have funny teeth like you. My teeth on the bottom grew in crooked. Mine up here were broken in a fight as a kid. And the last time that I went to the dentist was in 1986 because I was still in high school and the dental plan was going to run out. I was on my parents' medical plan. So they said, go there and get your teeth cleaned and do whatever needs to be done. But the funny thing is, when I went to the dentist that year, they looked at it. Well, you don't have any cavities and your teeth really aren't that dirty. And I have to admit that I was never good about brushing my teeth. I could go a couple of days and not brush my teeth and forget about it. But the dentist was surprised because before that, I had had a few cavities. And of course, my teeth had come in crooked and they were trying to talk me into braces, but I didn't like that idea. They said you have to pull your wisdom teeth. But that's the other thing. The wisdom teeth eventually grew in and there was not a problem. I didn't have to have them pulled. So I had no reason to go to the dentist. My teeth didn't hurt, they weren't rotting. So what was the sense? The dentist was like a torture chamber anywhere for me. You go there and sit in that chair and they put that thing in your mouth to suck out your saliva. Then they get that air drill and they I think it's designed to make you really stressed out. So I was just glad. I said I'm not going back there anymore unless I have to. And so far I haven't had to.
Yeah, you seem to be doing all right so far. I mean, I'll probably take it if I didn't go to the dentist that long. I mean, I went about 6 years ago for a minor filling, but before that, it's probably about 15 years before that. So whatever. I'm quite I've been quite lucky in that sense. Although I've got funny teeth, I've not been able to damage them to that extent. Um, so your diet is quite different to other people's. So you have more of an approach which is like sensible, it's more reasonable. If it's it's in season, I can get it, I'm gonna eat it. If it's cheap, I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna eat it. So what is your current diet like? Do you find that you have a taste for certain foods like on a day to day?
Well, my favorite food is beef. I love steak. The problem is I can't always afford it. For a while, the steak was cheap and I would buy it. I always go to the store when it's marked down and I try to get as much as I can. I mean, obviously, the fatty cuts are usually good, but I'll go for the lean cuts as well. It doesn't matter. So I'll go to the store, buy whatever I can, put it in the freezer. And then what I'll do, I'll stockpile. I have two refrigerators and a small freezer, and I'll stockpile as much as I can. Then I will eat it on a regular basis. Most of the time, what I'll do, if I can't afford the steak, I'll go and I'll buy some ground meat. And that's what I've eaten a lot this year because the steaks have doubled in price, but I can still get ground meat for $1.99 a pound over at the Gordon Foods. So I'll buy a 10-pound tube of that, and then I divide it up into 2-pound packages. So that way I can make my lunch. I eat it fresh when I can, but if I can't, I will freeze it. I mean, and they say it's probably not that good to freeze it, but I'd rather have frozen meat than no meat. And usually I'll stew cook it. I'll put it into a pot. I'll put some water in it. I may put an onion in there for flavor or garlic for flavor, and then just let it slow cook at a low temperature until the meat, is pretty much consolidated. And again, like you said, if I have it available, I'll go in the backyard. I'll get a tomato or two, and then I'll put that in there, remove the skin, put it inside. But most of the time, it's just beef with an onion and sometimes nothing. Sometimes what I'll do, I'll just make patties. I'll make half-pound patties, usually 3 or 4, and I'll cook them on either the grill or on the griddle that I have in the kitchen, and I'll just eat that by itself. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, I love the taste of beef.
Mm.
So I don't even put salt on my meat. I don't really season anything.
Yeah, it's funny that I'm hearing that more and more, especially people that have been following this sort of way of eating for a long period of time. The thing is, your antidiuretic hormone goes up, therefore you don't urinate as much, therefore you don't lose as much electrolytes. Therefore, the food you take in, whatever small quantity of sodium that would have in it, then is maintained and stays in your system. So that's how someone can go from eating, a pound of steak a day with 10 grams of salt, 5 grams of salt, to going down to none. There is a transitional period. I'd suggest just do it to taste. If you're hungry for salt, eat salt. That's what I say to people. You're probably of the same mind. You've done this intuitively now for God knows how long. I mean, who's going to tell you you've been doing it wrong?
That's true. And if I have a pound of salt, it will last me 2 years, maybe longer. I hardly ever use it. Once in a while, I'll put it on my eggs. A lot of times in the morning when I have my duck eggs or chicken eggs, I'll put a little salt on it. And that's about the only time I use salt. I love the taste of beef so much. I don't want to put anything on it. If I go to a friend's house for a barbecue or a meal, I tell them, please, I don't even want to see the steak sauce. That's a no-no. And if you have hamburgers, no ketchup. I don't want that because it's basically just corn syrup with tomatoes added. It's terrible. One of the
Yeah.
problems I have is I hate sweet things. I don't like anything that tastes sweet. You know, if I go by a bakery where they make cakes and cookies, it actually makes me feel like vomiting. It's absolutely horrible. So I just have strange taste. Maybe that's the why I eat the way I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's partly it. I mean, your taste buds are essentially trying to tell you what you want to eat, what your body needs. When we add sugar in the mix, especially at large quantities like the average person does, those taste buds, how they find things appealing, varies a lot. So the idea is that people like me and you get rid of as much sugar as possible, you know, find out what we crave. For me, my diet's pretty similar. It's mostly beef, eggs. I do oily fish most days if I can be bothered to do it. If not, I'm just having beef, eggs, salt, you know. I'll have butter and things like that. Sometimes I use like a protein powder and make a carnivore butter bite kind of thing, which is quite nice. But you know, that's just for my own pleasure really, and to get a lot of energy down without having to like, you know, physically eat bricks of butter. So yeah, it does drive me a bit insane. But like the other question I've had is about how much you're eating. I know how much you're eating because I've got it written down here, quoted from you yourself. So how much do you eat on say an average given day?
Well, usually it's going to be about 3 pounds of meat. It can be as much as six. Um, Calorie wise, which I know don't even matter.
Eight.
Yeah, well, there you go. I always tell people the only time you burn calories is if you see somebody smoking a cigar, because you don't burn food when you eat it. But I would say under their measurement, it would be at least 3,000 a day, up to 6,000. And I've been eating a lot of fat and a lot of meat over all these years, and I have never gained any weight.
Yeah, you've done quite well there, I think. I mean, I did notice recently I did a bit of an experiment where I was doing low protein, high fat. I knew what the most probable outcome would be. Um, is in I'd feel a bit better digestively, but my mood would be better, but you know, my body fat would go up. And that's exactly what happened to a T. I knew it'd happen, and it did happen. Um, it's just that predictability we get in our diet. So I'm sure, like you might have 6,000 calories per day, and you might do that for a week, and you think it doesn't really appeal to me anymore. The next day you might get down to 1,000, 2. You know, there's a intuitiveness to it. I mean, would you agree with that? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, although the lowest I've ever been is probably around 3,000. Because the problem is the way they calculate calories by burning food, the fat has such a much higher rating than something like carbohydrates. And I mean, I know that because I use fats as a fuel. You can use it. I use vegetable oils to run my truck, and I've even run engines on tallow and other animal fats. So the method they use is completely wrong. And because I eat so much fat with my diet, it makes the calorie count seem very high. And that's what they've told me for years. All the butter and the cheese and the fatty meats, the lard from pork, oh, it's all high calorie. But in terms of the amount of food I eat, it's pretty constant. Like you said, it's going to be at least 2 pounds of beef in some form per day. Plus, I do like sardines. When I can get them, I will buy them. When I lived down in the Keys, I used to get fish all the time. So I'll eat fish, although they're not really oily fish, they're tropical fish. I love seafood. I love shrimp. So whenever I can get it, I will eat it.
Hmm.
And uh, one of my favorite meats in the whole world is Muscovy duck. I love Muscovy duck, but I very rarely eat it because believe it or not, I'm kind of an animal person myself, and I love the ducks. I love ducks. I'll go and rescue them from the neighborhood when they're hurt or they fall down a drain, and I'll raise them. I've had to take things out of their feet when they're infected. I'm always taking care of the ducks. So after you've had a duck for a few months, you don't really want to eat it. So
Mm.
it's pretty rare that I get to eat one, but it's a very flavorful meat. It is lean, but it has a nice taste to it. But every day it's always at least at least 2 pounds of meat, and it can be much higher than that if I have it available.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like duck myself actually. Yeah, I mean, I prefer the fattier foods. For me today, for example, it's Sunday. On the Sunday, traditionally in Britain, we go for Sunday roasts. That's a roast dinner, a bit like Thanksgiving dinner, but like a small scaled down version. I don't know what I have. I had some uh, roast beef and roast lamb. Tastes just fine. I could easily done with some like duck or something, you know, but they don't do that over here in this sort of time of the year. In that sort of meal setting. So Yeah, I mean, are there any sort of weird exotic foods that you happen to eat at all?
Well, it's called chicken of the trees. And I guess for you, it would be weird because you don't have iguanas over there.
Not one.
The iguanas here are just a big lizard. And now I had one, I ate it. That's the problem. I haven't caught one in about maybe a couple of weeks. I was going to show you. They can, anywhere from this big to much bigger. I've had them as long as 4 feet. They can get very big. They live along the canals, and they were in my yard because I have a lot of tropical fruits. They like to eat the bananas. They like to eat some of the berries. So I would, I always was battling the iguanas. I don't eat much fruit myself, but a lot of people I know like to. So I try to keep them under control. And it's only been a few years that I learned that they were actually edible and tasty. So it was probably maybe 2015, 2014, somewhere around there, that a friend of mine, he had his yard taken over by iguanas. They were everywhere. And he says, you can eat these things. I said, oh, really? Okay. So after we killed some iguanas, I decided to cut them up and eat them. And boy, they were pretty good. The tail tastes something like chicken. The legs taste almost somewhere between like frog. They're like frog legs, but they have more of a dark meat in the legs. But the tail is a very white meat. And depending on where they live, some of the iguanas taste like fish, and some of them taste more like chicken. But I don't think I've ever had an iguana that wasn't delicious.
Yeah, I mean, our equivalent over here, maybe. We have like pigeon and pheasants and things like that. We can't. I don't think we can like kill these animals and take them. But if they are roadkill, we can essentially get them. But there
Mm.
is some way of like getting it through like a farmer or something. I'm sure there's some sort of way. But yeah, that tastes excellent. Honestly, I don't know if you've had that before. What do you think?
I've had pigeons before. Pigeons are actually a nuisance around here. They
Yeah.
live in buildings. A lot of times they'll get up on top of the air conditioner, like when you have a window air conditioner, that some people still have, and then they'll make a nest. And what they do, they start cooing. They go, "Woo, woo, woo," and the noise drives people crazy, so they want to get rid of them. The
Mm.
little ones that don't fly, they used to call that squab. So you could get that. They're the flightless pigeons. They're quite tasty. And I've had pigeon before, but considering that we're near a city, you never know what those birds have been eating. But all the other things we have here are like invasive. The iguanas are considered invasive, so people actually pay to get rid of them. And the ducks, they consider those invasive because these are not mallard ducks, they're Muscovy ducks, which is a type of South American duck that was domesticated, and people brought them here back when we used to have farms and it was rural. And as they developed the area, the ducks just stayed in the canals. And a lot of people don't like them because they say that they're ugly. Of course, I think they're beautiful. They have the little red stuff around their head, but then they say they're aggressive and they attack people, which they do sometimes, but it's very rare. But the worst part is the duck poop. A lot of people here, they have patios and they have sidewalks, and then they don't want to look outside and see duck poop all over the place. In my yard, I got rid of the lawn. I just put in compost and I have it as a garden. So the duck poop is a good thing for me because the poop falls on the ground and it feeds the soil bacteria. And my plants grow at a record pace. In fact, my banana plants are 25 feet tall. They're some of the biggest anyone has ever seen. I produce bananas the size of what you'd buy in the store, like the Cavendish bananas. And I attribute that to the ducks because the ducks, they eat scraps of food, they poop it out, it goes into the soil. I take cuttings from the yard and I use it as compost and I put it all over the ground. And what was just rock, I mean, down here is nothing but rock and sand. I grow incredible plants. Even my fruit trees, I have orange tree, I have lime trees, I have, some of those Suriname cherries and loquats and all this other stuff. Everything here grows rapidly and very healthy. And the other good thing about the ducks is they eat insects. So a lot of times insects will start taking over the garden, and you let the ducks go in there and they'll pick off every single insect. It's just amazing how much they can get. They even eat mosquitoes.
Yeah, we have I mean we have ducks over here. We don't discriminate against them, so to speak, but we don't like pigeons at all. Most of us don't. And the same with seagulls. So they do mess up a lot of people's laundry lines. They cause quite a bit of damage in some ways as well, like tearing bins apart and all this sort of thing. So they drive us nuts. But yeah, it's a shame we can't eat them because I imagine it'd be quite nice.
That'd be kind of funny because I don't know how they would know if you caught a pigeon and cooked it.
I don't know. I mean, that's a good point, isn't it? That's a good idea. That you got me thinking it, right? Uh,
Sometimes, like you said, those wild foods can be very tasty.
mm. Yeah, like yeah. So we covered like diet basically. All the weird and wonderful things we would like to eat. What about exercise? Do you do any of that, or is it just you just work from home and do your own thing in the yard sort of thing?
I don't like exercise. I have to admit I've tried it before. When I was younger, I tried resistance training, weight training, but it was so discouraging at that time because everybody else my age could lift more than me and did very well. And when it comes to aerobic exercise, absolutely not. There is no way in the world that I'm ever going to go running, walking around, or doing any of those things. I don't see the point of it. I spend a lot of time actually sitting in front of a computer, and then I do physical work outside. Like I do construction from time to time. Yesterday, I was just doing some plumbing, was breaking a wall with a sledgehammer and chiseling. I mean, I do physical work and I do work around here as well in the garden, work on my equipment and so on. But as for formal exercise, I don't do it.
Mm.
But the amazing thing is, I can walk faster than anybody else my age, and everyone's amazed. When they bring their kids over, let's say they have a get together and they want to play volleyball or they want to, just run around, I can keep up with all of them. And these are teenagers, 20 somethings. In fact, I can have more energy than some of the 20 somethings. That's
Mm.
the funny thing. I guess they spend too much time in front of the computer playing games. I don't know
Watch
what
it,
it is.
watching miscellaneous content.
Well, I do watch a lot of YouTube videos myself, but what I'll do, I have a large screen TV in the room that I work in. I have a TV in the shop, and I have one in the other room. And I just put them, I have an HDMI sharing system. I can turn the computer on, put the videos on. There's speakers all over the place. I can watch the video at the same time that I'm going from room to room, getting things done. And even when I'm outside, I have a portable that I can use to watch the videos. I don't have a cell phone. That's the other weird thing about me. I don't use a cell phone. I don't text message. Everything I do is from some type of PC. So that's why I have the system that I do. But yeah, I don't, no formal exercise whatsoever.
Yeah. So you came across this diet by your own weird means. I'm someone that came across it for my own weird means as well. Bodybuilding. I didn't even know about carnivore or anything like that. So you got to this diet, just for your own terms, and you found yourself on these like online community forums. You're a member of lots of different channels. You sort of follow a lot of different carnivore people in the space, even myself for some reason. So what what is it that made you sort of type in carnivore diet? Were you just trying to find out who else does what I do? What happened there?
Well, what happened before 2019, I didn't spend as much time on the computer like on YouTube. I did YouTube years ago. I started on YouTube in like 2007. And back then it was mostly about my antique cars and the other things that I did, how to do this, how to do that. I got into some controversy. I had some videos removed. One of my channels was deleted because I got into a battle with one of these energy scams. Back then it was 2008. They had a lot of these water for gas because the price of fuel had gone up, and they were taking advantage of people saying you could run your car on water. And I got mad about the whole thing. Let me make videos on that. And I got into it, but then around after that, I said, you know what? I don't care anymore. They deleted my videos. Forget about YouTube. I'm not going to waste my time anymore. Then my parents started needing help. I had to take care of them. My business was falling apart. A lot of things happened at once, so I got out of it. But then what happened was, as my mom got more and more needed more care, I spent more time inside rather than outside. I couldn't really work anymore because it became a 24-hour job to make sure that my mom was healthy. And I'd go on the computer and I'd look things up on different things on diet. And just by some, I don't know, accident, I managed to see that there was a keto diet. So I thought, what is keto diet? I don't know what that is. And I start looking at it. It's just basically a low carbohydrate diet. So I thought, wait a minute, I've been eating like this for a long time. So I thought, all right, that's interesting. But then when I looked at it, it says you have to be in ketosis and all that. I think, well, that's not the way that I eat. They're talking about eating a lot of fat, not eating a lot of protein. And I'm kind of the opposite. My diet was meat, meat, meat. And I remember what my mom used to tell me. She says, "So you're like a cat. You're a carnivore. All you want to do is eat meat." So I thought, okay. Well, after that, I got on the computer. I thought, let me look up carnivore diet. So I typed in carnivore diet, and the first person I saw was that rather strange man, um, Paul Saladino, the one that goes around and he takes off his shirt and he says, "I eat meat and organs and all that." I thought this is pretty funny. You got this guy over there with this crazy diet. I'm thinking, well, it's kind of similar to my diet. And then the next one that I saw was Sean Baker. Now I could identify with him because he's about same height as me. I'm 6'6", he's 6'5", and this is a year older than me. I thought, wow, this guy's in pretty good shape, and he's eating this diet. Of course, I look in the mirror, I'm like a toothpick. But then I realized, well, he originally had more of a standard diet. He had a background of bodybuilding, weightlifting, whatever, and he got that way first. But what amazed me about him is that he kept lean. So you could see where when you get older, most people that work out, they tend to gain weight. And I looked at him, I thought, okay. And then I started looking around and started seeing all these other channels. I said, wait a minute, this is something. There's something to this. But the real turning point was this year. I saw a video, and I don't remember exactly which one it was, but it was one done by Joey Schwartz. And I made a couple of comments on it. I mentioned how many years I've been doing the diet. So he said, "Do you want to be interviewed on my channel?" I thought, I didn't think, I said, whatever. And I thought about it for a few days, and I messaged him back. I said, maybe if anybody wants to see that. I figured we do an interview. Maybe a couple of people would look at it. They go, and that'd be the end of it. But it was surprising. I was there for the live premiere, and there weren't that many people on there. But it seemed like I started getting message after message after message. I look, and there's like thousands of views. What happened? Well, I guess when he put in there 40-year carnivore and this is what happens, I guess everyone was curious. I thought, wow, this is crazy. I didn't know that this was even a thing, a few months before that. I had no idea that this diet could be popular. And that's what kind of woke me up. And then I started viewing more and more of these videos and seeing different people in the channel that came up. And then I found you from Joey's channel as well, making comments. And that's how eventually I found your channel. So that's where it started. So even though I've been eating this way for a long time, I've only been aware of this community probably this year. Because before that, it was just those influencers that you saw online. I didn't know that there was a whole bunch of people doing it. I mean, even when Dr. Baker was doing his videos were mostly just him eating steak and reporting on different things, but there were no actual interviews. But now even his channel has gone to having more interviews. So it's really sort of an evolving community. It keeps changing, and it seems to be getting more and more popular.
Yeah, and it's getting popular for a good reason as well. So usually you have to sort of I won't bring up the recent allegations and truths about what happened with someone, runs around without a top on, wears a big like squirrel hat thing, all that sort of thing. That's a topic for another day, I think. Sorry, my back just kills. Excuse me, anyone, if they're watching this and wondering why I keep shuffling around, my back absolutely kills some days. But yeah, I was wondering, what is your favorite YouTube channel?
Favorite YouTube channel?
You don't have to say mine.
I don't know. I can't say honestly, but I do watch your channel every time I can. As soon as I get to eat lunch, I look for your video. Whether it's my favorite channel or not, I don't know, but it's definitely on my list of favorites.
There are a lot of favorites.
Well, it evolves with time. Sometimes a channel may be a favorite for a while. Some channels may not. Then it's sort of like a ranking. It increases. I'm a member of many, well, what do you call subscriber to many, many channels. So I don't know, but I've been impressed with what you've been able to come up with. I'm really impressed with you as a person because of what you've been able to do. You've been able to overcome a lot of problems, and you're working to help others, which to me, that's the best thing of all. It's not a selfish motive. It's the desire to make a difference. And that's what I see in your channel. That's the main reason that I keep watching it, because I feel like I'm getting some real information from a real person.
Yeah, I think although I'm a bit weird, autistic carnivore bodybuilder, That's like the most odd thing to ever think about. Like, how does that exist? But the thing is, like you said, I am a real person, and I'm what you see is what you get. I'm not very animated like some people. That's just the way I am. I can be, but that's usually in a bad sort of circumstance. I'd avoid trying to get me into that sort of state. But yeah, I'm pretty chill, and I've enjoyed having you as a member of my channel, a subscriber. You're always showing up on time. That's the great thing about the community as well, is that people participate and they support each other. It's not cult like in the sense of you're doing this but differently to me, therefore you're doing it right. Everyone's very accepting. The fact that you're a 39-year carnivore now, you still have quite a mixed diet, but you're pretty much a carnivore. I mean, what are you eating all day? Like beef? I'd say it's a
Yeah,
carnivore to me.
I can go many days with eating just meat. The vegetables and fruits are rare. Maybe, I don't know, maybe every few weeks. It's when they're ready. Whenever I go outside, if I look out there and I see a bunch of plantains ready to go, then I will cook some of those. And I usually, if I do eat fruit, it's going to be at lunchtime. I never have any carbohydrates for dinner because, you eat that stuff and you're not going to sleep very well. If you want to get a good night's sleep, you want to get as much meat and fat or whatever else that satisfies, and then you fall asleep. And that's another thing about me. I never have trouble sleeping unless the air conditioner is broken. Then I have a lot of trouble sleeping because it's so hot. But other than that, there's no problem, and I don't get stressed out. Now, I have had times where I didn't have access to quality meat, like if I was at a convention or something for my business. But usually I would try, if it was in Las Vegas, I'd try to get to a buffet, because at least at a buffet, you can pick what you want. And even if the food isn't all meat, you can pick out what you want and get rid of the rest. So, but yeah, like you said, it's just mostly meat. And every day I have some meat. So even if I don't have a complete carnivore diet, I'm going to have at least a pound or two of meat daily.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. Just on a final note, I wanted to say personally that I'm thankful that you have come onto my channel, and you've really promoted it in your own sort of little way. If enough people do that, we can get this message out, and it's going to be a lot better for everyone, not just myself. We're all going to benefit from this. It's a proper human diet. So, are there any sort of closing words you'd like to bring up before we finish this interview?
Well, in closing, I'm just very happy that I have been doing this for so long and I'm not crazy. Um, that there are benefits to this diet, even though when I initially started, I was calling it the heart attack diet, making a joke out of it. In fact, the one thing I do remember is that back sometime in the 2000s, there was a guy in Las Vegas that came up with a restaurant called the Heart Attack Grill. And they were serving all these burgers with the thick bacon and meat and all that. And basically, if you remove the bread, the ketchup, and anything with sugar in it, those thick patties, that's the way that I always ate hamburgers. So it's come to the point where the heart attack diet is now the health food diet. And the other thing too is that I have a friend of mine who's 77 who has switched from a standard diet to a more meat-based diet. And even he, being extremely obese and unhealthy and having only 20% of his heart, he's had like 5 heart bypasses. He's had an improvement. So it goes to show me that this is not actually a diet to try to die, but it's actually a diet to try to live. And even though I never could get the muscles like you have or some other people have, and I'm skinny, at least I've been able to grow tall and be very healthy. And I can do everything now as I could when I reached my full size at 25. So really, it may have been for the wrong reasons. And again, it was out of rebelliousness. A lot of teenagers, especially back in the 80s, they would rebel by drinking and smoking. I hate alcohol and I don't smoke. So I thought, I'll just eat the heart attack diet. That was my way of rebelling. But it turned out to be completely opposite. So you and other people that I've been communicating with on YouTube and being interviewed by is just a reinforcement. And it makes me feel better because now I don't have to feel guilty when I go and I get a bunch of beef and I'm eating all this fat and eating a whole stick of butter in a day and all these crazy things, because I know that it's really not harming me in any way.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that. Um, Thanks very much for your time, and I've been so pleased that you've finally been able to come onto my channel after all these weeks and probably months. So yeah, cheers for that.
I'm glad to be here and hope it's going to be one of many times.